Hoy there, what is happening? I am back with another episode of my NBL videos. Last time we went through pretty much every team and every player that has signed, so like all free agency has been sorted. I mean, there's still a lot of players that need to be signed, a lot of teams that have some things to look at, which is what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at what every team needs. So let's get right into it. But first up, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, the YouTube thing, algorithms and things like that. Gotta say it, gotta point it out, but let's get into it. First up, we got the 36ers. They currently have 6 players already rostered onto their roster. I have made a list on my phone of all the players, like the things that they need, what they have, and yeah, pretty much everything. Because we went into it a little bit last time, but not, entirely, like not everything that could have gone through. I've wrote down a bunch of players that could potentially be signings on these teams. I've pretty much based that off players that have previously played in the NBL or have already been linked to the NBL. This isn't saying like, oh, I saw this guy in the G League, he looks like he could be in the NBL. I don't want the G League. I do not. There is not enough time in the day to watch like the G League or European basketball. The NBA is still going on. Like the NBL, there's not enough time for all this. NBL 1, like I'm watching games here and there. I don't know the players super well in the NBL 1, so I don't want to be like, oh, this guy in the NBL 1 should be signed here. I don't think I have enough sample size to say that about a lot of the players there. So this is pretty much based off previous players in the NBL, where they could potentially end up, what teams actually need, and yeah. So first up, Adelaide 36ers. They have 6 players. I think I already mentioned that. But what they need is 3, they've still got 3 import spots. So Matt Weston appeared. So Matt Weston is Adelaide's one of their GMs, owners kind of people. He appeared on NBL's The Huddle, or NBL Now. Peter Hooley hosts a show. He talks to a bunch of players around the league, bunch of GMs, bunch of owners and all that. Really interesting. It is definitely worth a watch. It's 20 minutes. It's got a lot of information about Adelaide's plan, especially if you're an Adelaide fan and you're confused what the direction is. You do have your 2 marquee players, Isaac Humphries, DJ Vasiljevic. But what else are you going to get? You've got a bunch of local talents now. It does sound like they've got a proper plan in place. But from speaking to Peter Hooley, he pretty much stated 2 out of the 3, they're looking at 3 imports. 2 out of the 3 imports have NBA experience. What that means is they could have been part of a 2A, they could have played a year as fresh out of college, anything that's has them linked, so they're more than likely going to be G League players. There is a point guard and a power forward. They're putting all their stock and the money into the power forward. That's going to be their big get. I don't have any names. I don't know who that could even be. So I don't really want to say, oh, this is who I think they're going to get, because there's not really a lot of information to go off other than what he said in the interview. So we're just going to leave that as a bit ominous, if you watch the G League, let me know some potential players. But it does look like they want to buy more into that power forward role, because if you look at previous teams in the past that have had a lot of success, you look at Melbourne United with Jack White, and Luke Travers, then you look at Sydney with Xavier Cooks, Jack McVeigh for Tasmania Jack Jumpers. It's been one of those pivotal spots that if you knock down properly, it gives you a better shot. I know Illawarra Hawks didn't have the strong... Darius Days was solid in sections. He didn't have 100%. The game was fantastic. He did have spots where he does need to grow and get better, but he's also 24, 25, so he's actually on a few teams' radar for me. What I think a few teams should be looking at, because I think the second year, a guy like him is going to be a lot better than the first year. But one possible import who has been potentially linked is Jalen Adams. I quite like the fit there. Him back with DJ, they won a championship as that backcourt. Isaac Humphries would be a good match with Jalen Adams, the way that he plays. Flynn Cameron is also there to be that starting small forward. So something like Jalen Adams is definitely going to be in contention to be that point guard. Plus, DJ can actually handle the ball now. It will relieve him a lot of that touches that he had to take. He's probably the guy that I've got he's probably that kind of player. Derek Holden Jr. is another guy kind of like that. Tyler Johnson even. He played for Brisbane a few years ago. He's 32 now. He could be a potential player for these teams that just need that proper facilitator. They also want to shoot a lot of threes, so they need to have a 3 ball in them. They can't just be big and chunk. They don't want a Montrezl Harrell again. They don't want to be playing Montrez and Isaac Humphries, which makes sense. But the other things that they do need is they need a backup point guard, they need a backup power forward, they need a backup center. Harry Froling is going to be a name that's pretty much thrown around to every team that needs that backup center, because right now he's coming back from that major injury. He is looking bigger and stronger now playing in the New Zealand. You can see that he's getting back to where he was. He's dropping 30-point games, which is looking good. He's going to be on a lot of teams' radars for that backup center role. I think Adelaide could use a guy like him. But they also do, the backup point guard, I think is going to be hard for them to find. Like, Mitch McCarron has just been released by the New Zealand Breakers, but there is no world where he goes back to Adelaide after their last fiasco, let's call it. Like, their last meeting, the last time that they were on the same team, did not work well. He's probably not going to be one of those names that is on that list. But figuring out who this backup point guard is going to be, it's going to be tough for... Like, hopefully they can get a next star that can play the point guard, but actually play minutes, not like how they signed Trenton Flowers to be that point guard, but he was not a point guard. That did not make sense. But you know what? They've learned, they've gotten better. Even like a backup power forward as that next star, that is probably like the ideal thing for them that can play a little bit of the fight. Like, guy like Malik Lewis would be fantastic for them. Don't know who that's going to be. It's going to be a lot harder to get next stars now because of the college NIL. But yeah, that's the 36ers right now. Let me know, is there anybody else that should be on their radar? I don't have a lot of names for the 36. I feel like they're one of the hardest ones because they burnt a few bridges as well with a few players. So it's harder to find players to actually come in. I know they're trying to rebrand of what they were. They're looking better than what they were a few years ago, but it is still hard for that local talent to feel trusted in Adelaide. Next up, we've got the Brisbane Bullets. So they've got 7 players already signed. They've got 2 imports already signed. They've only got 1 import spot left. More than likely going to be an import guard to play along James Bateman. They also need a power forward. They don't really have that power forward / can play a bit of the 5 if needs be. So a few of the guys that I've gotten written down for like their possible import spot, I put Rob Edwards. I would like to see him back in the NBL. Like, him and James Bateman would be an absolute flamethrower backcourt offense. You want a lot of 3-point shooters around Tyrell Harrison because he's going to clog the paint. He's going to get the rebounds for you. And playing with Casey Prather also will open them up. Like, they don't need to always be on the ball. You have Casey Prather to be on the ball a lot. I've also put Darius Days down. I feel like he could be a good fit. That second year, having Casey Prather next to him also helped guide him into what he could potentially be. And then Ian Clark, if they want that more bench role, like if they want to start Mitch Norton and they want to have a guy coming off the bench, Ian Clark is that phenomenal job. He's a veteran. And the other big thing they need is that proper backup center. They do not have one right now. I would not expect Harry Froling to want to come back to Brisbane. He had made a few public tweets in the past about the health care, like how he felt taken care of in like health insurance and all that when he was with Brisbane when this incident did happen. So I don't expect him to be open arms to come back to Brisbane. But a few other guys, I've got Jordan Crawford. He does want to stick in the NBL. He is a potential guy to be in teams like Brisbane, Cairns that just need another scorer. I don't think the fit with James Bateman isn't the best though. That's probably my thing against it, but I've just seen him as a rumoured possibility to go play for Brisbane. Angus Brandt is another name that's thrown around a fair bit. He's an Aussie. He might want to come back to Australia. If he does, he could be a potential, like a marquee player, as is Will McDowell-White, which is very highly unlikely at the moment. He has talked about playing for Brisbane in the past. He is from Brisbane, but that one is probably like a very far reach, wishful thinking. And then I also put Jonah Bolden down. He could be a good fit for this squad. He's just like that. He could be like a marquee level player. I know he doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but I think he needs to find a coach to actually unlock what his offense could be. New Zealand did not use him properly. Sydney somewhat used him better than what New Zealand used him, but I feel like he hasn't been properly unlocked in the NBL. He's also a guy that could potentially go to Adelaide. Like, he's got the NBA experience. He's also got that 3-ball. He can play the center as well, which a lot of teams need. He's got that very versatile frame and can be used in a lot of different ways. But yeah, they're a team that only need like 4 players. So they need an import, they need a marquee, then they need some bench roles. Even like a guy like Jonah Antonio, they just need that shooting guard. I doubt Dang Adele will return. And then I've also seen Brock Morton being thrown around as a potential name to go to Brisbane. That one's very highly unlikely, but if the offer is right, there is a chance that he could come to the NBL. But again, they're a team that there's not a lot to say because most of their roster is filled out. They're more than likely waiting for like a next star. Probably have Kyle Savage is another name who I would love to see actually get minutes this year. I know he was first year in his developmental process. That's fine. Get him on the court at least this year. He's a very good talent. He deserves to have that opportunity at least. And then we have the Cairns Taipans. This is the hardest team to figure out what direction they're going. They still don't have a coach. That's the biggest concern that I have with them right now. They don't have that coach. It doesn't seem like they have a plan. I know they're not going to spend a lot. We know that's going to happen. But they don't really have team build either. They've Sam Wardenberg, he's their marquee player. They don't have any imports. They have 3 other guys signed. Like, there's only 4 players signed on this squad right now. They have a lot to fill out. They don't really have a lot. I'm assuming they're going to find some diamonds in the rough in the NBL 1, like they always do. They're probably going to get their imports from Europe, as they typically do. These players that aren't well known, but come over and absolutely ball out, like grow their value. Somebody like Tanner Groves, who will probably not be returning. But the names that I've got currently written, I've got Jordan Crawford. I feel like he would be a good fit up here. He just wants to play in the NBL. He wants to come back to Australia. I think the Cairns Taipans might be his best opportunity to actually play. He could end up being a starter, or he could do that bench role again, but more than likely be a starter because they don't have a lot of talent right now. There's not a lot of guards available for a lot of these teams. But I didn't really write a lot of names for them because typically a player that plays in Cairns does not return to Cairns. I mean, Pedro Bradshaw is the only possibility, I feel like, players that played in the NBL to come back to Cairns or come to Cairns because they get priced out of Cairns. He's the only player that I feel like has that best bet. I mean, him and Jordan Crawford, they're probably like their 2 possibilities. But yeah, I don't really have a lot of names written for Cairns Taipans because there's not a lot of... They're going to find these free agents towards the end of free agency. I saw the rumours of Ty Webster. I don't think Ty Webster will sign there. He seems like more than likely going to return to New Zealand, but he's a possibility. I wouldn't mind him in Cairns. Then he would actually have the ball in his hand and show that he's actually very good at basketball. He had to play a lot of defense playing with Bryce Cotton, but now playing with a team like Cairns, he would have the opportunity to play offense. The only other name is like Jonah Antonio. I imagine he will be resigning. He seems like a good Cairns player. Like, he seems like their kind of guy. And then the other name is Alex Ducasse, who is currently signed with the Thunder, but it is a 2-way, so he might be like a Mojave King who comes to the NBL for a season. Mojave King would also be like a really good get for them, but it does sound like he's going to the G League, so don't expect Mojave King to come back to another team in the NBL. Maybe in a few years he will return, but at this point he still does. His rights are still with the Pacers, so it's more than likely he goes back to the NBA, like that landscape. So Alex Ducasse is definitely that one possibility of like a big name coming to Cairns to grow his value like Taran Armstrong did. Taran Armstrong is also not going to returning. If he does, it will more likely be Tasmania, if any team. The way Taran Armstrong was balling up towards the end of the G League, I imagine he would be getting picked up for another year. And they're also a team that will more than likely get players that are finishing up in college. And there's also the possibility of Mitch McCarron. He's probably the only other guard that I could think of. But they have Kyle Adnam, so I wouldn't imagine them wanting to get 2 guards in that veteran kind of role, but that is a possibility. Then we have the Hawks, who pretty much have their roster filled out. They brought everybody back, except at this point in time, Trey Kell and Darius Days. I'm hoping they bring back Trey Kell. That would be great for them to be able to bring him back. That's still possible. Like, there's nothing set in stone that he's going to return or he's not going to return. He would be the guy that I would be going for. If you cannot get him, the only other player I could think of like as that guard would be like Derek Orton Jr., that kind of player that can help facilitate and score the ball if needs be. The only other thing that they really need is that power forward. There are rumours of Thonmaker. I would love Thonmaker to come to the NBL. I think he'd fit really well with them. He can play the 4, he can play the 5. He can get his value up of what it used to be. But he's probably chasing more money over in Europe at the moment. But there is honestly not a lot to talk about with the Hawks because they did what they had to do. They won the championship. They brought everybody back. That's what pretty much you need to do when you win the championship because you could go back to back. Unless you let everybody walk, then you don't have that chance. That's why Tasmania couldn't go back to back. They lost their biggest name. The Hawks actually have that shot. Like, everybody has signed. Sam Froling will return halfway through the season, so there is a chance that they try and bring in like another centre just as an injury replacement. Harry Froling's name has been thrown around like he has been for every other team. This one's a high possibility. His brother does play. He does live in the Illawarra region typically. So that's probably the only real players that they will be going after right now. They're one of the few teams. Them and like Sydney's like one of the only teams that actually finished, so there's not a lot to talk about with what they're going to do in the future. Next up, we have Melbourne United. There is a lot to go on about Melbourne United. They've had a lot of people move on. They've had 6 people still under contract. They don't have any imports signed at the moment. I mean, there's always the talks of Ian Clark returning, which is honestly possible. He's playing with Chris Goulding right now over in somewhere overseas. I think it's Puerto Rico they're playing at right now. they need at least 2 or 3 imports. It doesn't look like they're going to have those marquee Aussies that they've had in the last few years. The only possibility of returning is Jack White. If the NBA doesn't pan out, if things in Europe don't pan out the way that he expects, that he is the only shot of like one of those marquee Aussies that you lost from last year that could come back. I mean, there's always Chris Goulding, but he's also 37. He's probably going to be turning 38 during next season, so you probably don't want to be relying on him too much. I mean, I guess we've been saying that the last few years, and he's just still showing up. Shooting is like Steph Curry. He just doesn't lose the look. But there are also rumours of JLA potentially coming back to Melbourne United. That would be nice to see him return. He could be like that marquee centre that they're looking for, that they always struggle to find. I put in Keanu Pinder as a potential Aussie. This might be a controversial take. I don't see him as a marquee player in the NBL. I get why he'll get that bag, he'll get that more money over in like Asia, which is where he's rumoured to be going. But the value that he brings is a bit too hit and miss to be like a definitive marquee player. I'd probably prefer somebody like Tyrell Harrison over him, but that's just me. But I do see like the draw of Keanu Pinder, like that offense when he starts hitting shots, he's looking phenomenal, but when he's missing, he's almost unplayable because he doesn't have that defense. But it would be nice for him to return to the NBL, but he's also hitting 30, so he's probably trying to chase as much of that money as he can, which is understandable, which is probably why he's going to go to the Asian region to find a bigger contract, because they like those really tall men. The other centre I've written down is Tanner Groves. I would love for him to return to the NBL. There are a few teams that could use that kind of centre. Melbourne is probably the best fit because of what he can do. He can shoot the three, he can defend, he's good enough to stick around, and I think in Melbourne he will look really good. Probably the easiest way to describe it. But in terms of other players that have the potential of returning, I've got Pedro Bradshaw. I like Pedro Bradshaw. I like him to return to the NBL. Melbourne would be a good fit because they always need like another wing. He could definitely suit that as that import, move Chris Goulding to the 2, and you could keep Shea Ili as your point guard, which I don't think Shea Ili is the best point guard. He feels more like an off-ball guard, but I guess we'll see the impact that he will actually have this year without Delhi. Yanni Wetzel's another name that's been thrown around. He's currently playing in Europe. He could potentially, if he came to the NBL, like Melbourne's one of the teams that could probably afford him. Finn Delaney is also linked to Melbourne at the moment. It's always good to have the local talent come back and play locally because it feels like a better fit. And the other 2 players I got is Tyler Johnson and Derek Golden Jr. They're probably those kind of point guards I'm going to throw around a lot because they have that NBA experience. They can facilitate the ball. They're also just helpful for every team for what they need. You can see the difference they make when they actually are on the court. I think Tyler Johnson's last stint when he played for Brisbane wasn't the best. Like, there was all the shenanigans, there was all the issues going on. And the other thing I've gone for players that they will go after, they will probably just develop players. Melbourne are one of the best teams in terms of developing players. Like, you look at their latest Tanner Krebs, Flynn Cameron, Kyle Bowen, like most of those guys are still under contract, but somebody, they can always find these guys, they can always find these forwards and everything that they develop. I feel like they're just going to go through that route a fair bit. I mean, they still need to sort out these imports and they still need to find another marquee Australian to play with Chris Goulding and Shea Ili. But until they find those actual players, like there's a few options that they do have. And even something like Joe Wieskamp, the way that he played towards the end of the season, and I think if he has another season under his belt, could look a lot better than what he was at the beginning of last year, and that could actually help him get back into the NBA once he finds that 3-point shot again. Once he actually defends properly, like he does have that potential. Then we have a team that has all their local talent but have no imports. We have the New Zealand Breakers. They've signed all their Kiwi talent. They've gone back to their roots. The Kiwi talent isn't the high-end Kiwi talent that they once had. I mean, there is a potential of Ty Webster returning to New Zealand, but that's probably your best bet in terms of like that high-end Kiwi talent. I mean, Sam Menenga's been playing phenomenal, so he is probably that other high-end Kiwi talent. Then you've just got to nail these imports. Parker Jackson Cartwright is looking like he's going to return to New Zealand. It is looking a lot better than what it was, say, like 3 months ago when he had all these outbursts. At this point in time, it's looking like he could potentially sign very soon. So expect that to be posted. Well, don't expect it. I mean, nothing's confirmed, but it's looking like it is going to happen. And then other imports I've written down. I wrote Tanner Groves. I just wanted to stick around the NBL. And I also wrote Zylan Cheatham. There is a possibility that he does return to the NBL. There is a chance that he comes back to the New Zealand Breakers. So that would be another big get. They want another big body to play with Sam Menenga. Like, just to not have to be concerned about the centre position, which is smart because big bodies also just help in the general scheme of things. I've also put down Ian Clark. I do think he's the potential of playing in like a backcourt with whoever, like Ty Webster. I think they will suit each other very nicely. Like, they're complementary pieces. There's no one that's going to take the ball. But then he's also good if you have Parker Jackson Cartwright, who Ian Clark can come off the bench and do his thing, and then it relieves Isaiah Liafa of missing every single three-pointer like he did in Sydney. So they're like those three kind of imports that they get. They're set in like the wing department. They're one of the few teams that are really set in the wing department where they don't have too many, but they've got enough to get the job done. Like Sean Bairstow, Max Darling, guys like Ruben Tarangi as well coming back. But they've also got Rob Lowe, so the centre position is also kind of sorted. But I do see a world where they still try and get another centre, like an import centre, to play along Sam Menenga. That is also something that could potentially happen. And Yanni Wetzel is one of those other people who is linked to them. Finn Delaney is another one. They are the other, probably like the best chances of like high-end local talent to coming to New Zealand. And then we have the Wildcats, who a few weeks ago they looked like they didn't have anything, and now they're almost filled out. They've already got 2 of their imports. They've got 9 players signed in total. They only need 2 more players. They need a marquee and they need another import. They have so many wings. Like, let me read out all their wings. They got Christian Doolittle, Jesse Wagstaff, Thomas Jurovic, Dylan Windler, Lat Mayon, Sunday Detch. Sunday Detch is considered a guard, but I think he's more of a wing. And then David Aquera. So like that 2 to 4 is absolutely set and it's absolutely stacked. What they need is that point guard and center. Who that point guard and center is going to be, it is a mystery. The few names I've gotten down, so for that, they definitely need that point guard. So Will McDowell-White is the one that I'd be going after. I'd be sending the bag to. I'd be the boatload of money. Come back home, come play for Perth. You can be that guy. But I wrote down Parker Jackson Cartwright. I don't think he'll be going. Like, the fact that he's more than likely going to return to New Zealand does seem a lot less likely he could go anywhere else. And then I also wrote Derek Holden Jr. I think he's like facilitating would mostly be appreciated there compared to any other player. Like, he's always going to average at least 8 assists. And then Jalen Adams is another name that could potentially go to Perth if he wants to be that number 1 option, and if he wants the ball in his hand all the time, that could be a spot for him. And then they are also trying to get JLA to come to Perth, which I think would be a good fit. I actually would probably prefer him to go to the Wildcats over Melbourne, just to give him something new and different and see how that goes, and see if it is like truly he's unstoppable, because I think he will have the ball a lot more if he's playing for Perth, and he will become more of an MVP contender if he's in a team like Perth. Just because the way that Melbourne plays, they're too much of a team oriented, so it's harder for one guy to stand out. Like, everybody always looks so good together, if you get what I mean. Like, this isn't saying Melbourne made him look better. I think he will stand out a lot more in another team that isn't Melbourne. But they definitely do need that scoring punch. I don't think they have that. Well, Dylan Windler and Christian Doolittle are proving to be that scoring punch, but I don't see them as that number 1 option, like that scoring point guard that potentially could be a possibility. Or like a JLA down low in the paint to absolutely dominate everything. And then imagine the rebounding between him and Dylan Windler. Nobody else will get the boards. That is the fact. Now let's talk about the Phoenix. They have 5 players rostered. They have their marquee, Nathan Sobey. They've also got Geordie Hunter. They do not have any imports. They do not have a bench, pretty much. They've got, at the moment, Owen Foxwell and Angus Glover on their bench. They need a point guard. They need a small forward, and they need a power forward to start on their court. They need, and it's not expected, it's expected that none of their imports return. So they got a lot to look at. They got a lot to find. So I wrote down a lot of names that could fit what they want to do in terms of point guards. They get Derek Holden Jr., Jalen Adams. I think Jalen Adams has that connection with Geordie Hunter and Angus Glover, which would be a good fit for him. Derek Holden Jr. to return would be phenomenal, but it's not expected that he will return. And then in terms of that wing, I've wrote Pedro Bradshaw. I think he would be a good fit for the Phoenix. He will fit in that like 3 spot nicely. And then there's also like Justin Simon, just to have that defense next to Nathan Sobey, just to have that defensive around the entire team to help out a lot, to be that onboard defender. And I also wrote Gary Clark, Darius Days, guys like that for that power forward spot. Matt Hurt will not be returning. He has been priced out because of how good he is, and he's going to get better because he was 24 when he was here. By God, imagine giving him a year or two, how he would probably average 25 points in the NBL. That's how good he's getting. But in terms of like Aussie talent, like I've gotten 3 names: Akolda Getch, Mitch McCarron, Dang Adele. 3 potential players that could actually fit into their rotation. They don't really have that set backup center. I mean, they got Akech Ali to be that backup center, which I think would work well. Then they also have that potential bringing in a next star. They will have a good reputation now with Malik Lewis. Like Malik Lewis just got so much better throughout the season, and I have my doubts of him getting drafted just the way that the NBA draft works. But he will definitely be like a 2-way pickup steal that will end up getting a full contract because of how good he actually is. But that's the Phoenix. There's not a whole lot else. Like, they just need a lot of players. Pretty much, they don't have most of their bench. They still need 6 players. They still need 3 imports, 3 are Aussies. They need a proper backup point guard. So I think Mitch McCarron would be best suited for a Phoenix just because it has that veteran player off the bench. I know he didn't play that great in New Zealand, but maybe a change of scenery is what he needs. Even if he's just like that veteran role just to help out the younger guys, that is also another option for him. And I've also seen Craig Moller. He is expected to be healthy, like he tore his ACL. So there is a chance that he does end up on a team, even if it's just like as an injury replacement, just to see if he can still go. And then there's always that Tom Von Danovich. He could also potentially return. I mean, he's always good in spot up minutes. He's always good as that leader, as like that veteran player. I mean, he's always on winning teams, so it doesn't hurt to have him around. Alright, we got 2 more teams to go. We got Sydney Kings, my Sydney Kings. They have 11 players signed. They have 1 import signed. They have like 2 Australian marquee players, 3 Aussie marquee players at the moment. They can potentially bring in another player. They will just have to move Jason Spurgeon to that DP role again. They were hoping that he was ready. I mean, he did show flashes, but if you're trying to win a championship, I don't know how well he's going to work out as that backup center. So the only position that they would be looking for would be a center. I saw Joel Priest's name thrown out. I mean, Sydney can't keep getting away with that if they got Joel Priest. Like, that's just like you'd 100% be checking their checkbook on what are they throwing under the table to get all these star players. I highly doubt that. I imagine a world where this is just their roster. This is just what they're going to go out with, and they're just going to see how it goes for like the first month or 2, and then in that FIBA break, look for possibly like an import center to fill out that role if they needs be. There's not really a lot to talk about Sydney. They're pretty much set. Highly doubt that they do anything else until the NBL starts. Then the final team, we have the Tasmania Jack Jumpers. They have a player signed. They don't have any imports signed. That's all they need is their 3 imports, and then they're set. Milton Doyle is kind of expected to return. Like, he likes it down there. They like him. It was either him or Jordan Crawford, so it's looking like it's going to be Milton Doyle now. And then the other import spots they need to look at, probably get another point guard or something, somebody to help Sean McDonald if something does happen to him again. I've only written down like 2 names in terms of that point guard role. I wrote down Tyler Johnson, I wrote down Jalen Adams. They're probably very doubtful, but something like that as just another guy who can hold the ball, who can shoot. That's pretty much what they want in that other point guard. Just that other guard that can help out, relieve the pressure, help like just do the other things, because there's always like Milton Doyle, they have Josh Bannon now, Will Magnay. You know, if you can get somebody who can shoot the 3, then I think they'll be set and facilitate a little bit. Like, that's all they really need in that other import. And then that third import, I imagine they're going to find like another center, like a Marcus Lee. Marcus Lee does have the potential of returning to Tasmania. You know, you've got Will Magnay, but he was also on that roster for that championship run, and I think he'll be a good fit for that championship run again. Like, he slots in well. He knows the coach. He knows a lot of the players. That will probably be like the thing that makes logical sense the most. But they're also a team that's pretty set in what they have. The only other name that's been thrown around is Taron Armstrong, but I doubt he will be not in the NBA next year. I doubt that he will not be on a 2-way contract next year. This is just like if everything falls through, something horrible happens, this is an option for him. There will be no Jack McVay. He's sticking around for another year, the NBA. Even if he isn't on the Houston Rockets on a 2-way, he's going to do the same thing that Jack White did a few years ago, and that's just stick around the G League, see if you can get a call up, see if you can get another opportunity, and go from there. That is probably what Jack McVay is going to do next year. But that is all the teams. That is a lot of players that not really a lot of players, but that's all the potential player signings that could happen. Like that's all the players that need, like all the teams, what everything that they need. Let me know in the comments, what player do you want your team to go after the most? Like what's the must need player? What's the must need position that your team is lacking? What do they need the most? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you all next time.